Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. In this video I'll be covering Cardas audio, and that's the cables, the plugs, and most things that they make. I think they only make cables and plugs as far as I know, but um, yeah, I mean Cardas is a well-established, pretty good cable brand, period. It's a versatile brand. They have a stock sound that is typically a bit on the warmish side. They have some pretty good structure going on in their sound, and you can hear that the more that you're progressing upwards towards the bigger models. That Cardas does evolve, it does get more informative, and it does improve. So well done, Cardas, for doing that. I would though say that the very older lower models of Cardas are nowhere near where Cardas is right now. The sound has evolved. It has evolved quite a bit, and especially at the top end, it's a lot more 3D and neutral compared to the old stock sound. So that is pretty good. And I also like the old top models. I can't remember what it's called. If I could just remember it. Cardas Golden something. I can't remember what it's called, the old top model. But that was also pretty darn good on especially lower end gear. And nowadays you can get that used pretty cheap. But these are my considerations about Cardas, and I mostly have good things to say about the brand. And you know me, I don't have a lot to say about a lot of brands that make cables that are really positive. And I have to say that Cardas and AudioQuest are like pretty darn good when you're dealing with regular gear or the slightly higher price gear like Class A, Audioflight, Macintosh, Paslabs, Mark Levinson, stuff like that. But when you're dealing with like the best gear in the world, I personally think that Cardas then acts like a thing that restricts your sound, which keeps it in a zone that's a bit too safe, a bit too compatible, a bit too good, where it gives you like a lower level of warmth. But I'm talking about gear that is called audio notes, Condo, Negra, Spectral, maybe even stuff like D'Agostino and Griffin. It's around there, around D'Agostino, Griffin, and top YBA amplifiers, where I think that it's around there you're gonna start wanting to cut off Cardas at their top cables, and then move from Cardas over to something more exclusive like Yorma, Condo, Audio Notes, or some other high-end brands that usually cost more than Cardas. So Cardas has its place. It's well established. It's pretty compatible. Just an overall good sound. And these are like my considerations about Cardas, and they are pretty musical and they have a pretty decent structure. Let's just go to the negative sides of what I have to say, and that's, like I said before, they do solve a problem like most other cables by imposing its own character on the sound and to some degree suppressing it a bit and keeping it a bit safe. But Cardas does it usually at a higher level than most other manufacturers. So yeah, that's usually how you solve problems in hi-fi typically. But it also has a tendency of being a bit heavy, a bit slow, and where the tonality just isn't quite there and the 3D just isn't quite there. And then again, I'm comparing it to the best cables in the world. So yeah, that's just the name of the game. I mean, you can't have everything when you're dealing with this price class of cable. And I mean, the plugs that they make are also pretty darn good. So again, that's pretty unusual. There aren't many plug manufacturers that are as, I would say, consistent. Yeah, consistent is probably the word, as Cardas. And Cardas would be a very good fit for example, Sennheiser headphones. They have a tendency of being a bit analytical and numb in sound, and putting a good Cardas cable on that can typically give it a bit more pizzazz and character and warmth, so it feels like it's more whole, the sound. So that's good. I mean, that's what they typically do. They just make the sound more smooth, warm, whole, and yeah, if you want more detail, you just go up a couple of models, and that takes care of that. So these are like my considerations about Cardas. Um, and yeah, I really feel that Cardas belongs in this market when you've got brands, I like to call them pretend hi-fi brands, like Classe, Audioflight, and stuff like that, where there's a lot of detail, and it has a tendency of being a bit bright and harsh and mechanical. And Cardas is like the, like, yeah, let's make it work together, and adding a bit of warmth and just giving it a slightly more of a tubey sound, so you don't get this almost like dead vibrational sound that makes everything slightly boring and grey, and it just adds a bit of warmth on a pretty intelligent level. So that's Cardas in a nutshell. So would I recommend buying Cardas? I mean, yeah, if you're dealing with lower class gear, and you want to end it around Macintosh, Past Labs, Class A, Audified, and stuff like that, then go with Cardas. But if you're like into the really exclusive gear, and you want to try amplifiers like Ear, Jadis, and upwards, getting into the really expensive gear like Negra, Spectral, Kondo, Audio Note, you definitely don't want to go with Cardas. It's just going to weigh it down, and you're not going to really feel that layering, that deep layering, and that deep level of warmth. But that's gear that costs a lot more. So if you've got regular transistor gear, fine. Cardas is a fine option for that. And also AudioQuest, Cardas is one of those few cable brands that actually can compete with AudioQuest. And AudioQuest makes some pretty darn good cables. When you look at their cables, usually from the mid to the top models, I don't like AudioQuest cables when you look at the lower models. I really don't think that represents AudioQuest very well. I mean, it's okay for the price, but I mean, if you want to use money on cables, get some proper cables if you have to use money on cables. So that's my overall impression of Cardas. I hope you guys could use this, and if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would be nice. Have a nice day. Bye.